What's up, gang? Welcome to Room and Board. My name is Chris George, and today we have another episode of Crowdfunding Countdown, where we take a look at every single board game campaign that is leaving Kickstarter and GameFound this week. The reason being is a lot of these campaigns get a lot of attention at the beginning of their life cycle, and then that's it. So what I like to do is take a look at them near the end of their life cycle, remind you when your time is running out. That sounds ominous. Your time is running out. And then you can also see at what sort of stretch goals or bonuses have been thrown in to the campaign and see if it's a worthwhile back for you. I read through the rulebook so you don't have to, and highlight any mechanics that I think might be interesting and share my thoughts about what I found. Now you'll notice I'm not in my usual studio today, my house. That's because I'm in Nova Scotia for about a month's time. But luckily, anywhere there's a blank wall, I can throw up some cool board game graphics. I was hoping for something a little bit better than that. Damn it, we're off to a bad start. But before we begin, you must like and subscribe to this channel. Hey, I don't make the rules. I know. I wish you could watch the video before deciding if you liked it or deciding if you hated my guts, but YouTube just doesn't allow it anymore. They'll actually come to your house and break your computer if you don't do that every single time. So you're welcome for the heads up. Anyway, enough of that nonsense. Let's get into why you're here, which are the games. I always include the deadlines for a specific game. So this week, these are all in the Atlantic time zone, not the standard Eastern time zone that I usually do, because that's what my computer and Kickstarter translated all of my screenshots into. Now, first up this week, we have Collabescape, which presents itself as a one-shot escape room experience in a box that you can do multiple times over. And I will admit that I wasn't at first convinced, even with their catchy tagline of, "Have you ever played a game and loved the banter? Have you ever solved a puzzle and felt the rush of adrenaline? These are the reasons we designed Collabescape." I mean, but I do have a little bit more faith in them, considering that they've been designing brick and mortar escape rooms for a while, and also have done 2 previous Kickstarters for escape advent calendars, which sounds pretty fun. But I don't know if that necessarily means that this is going to be replayable, especially since it only includes 2 scenarios. So the way that they're tackling this replayability, instead of just giving you one puzzle to solve for a particular point in the game, you have to get through this door, for example, to get to the next room, you'll have multiple possibilities. So you could be solving one that needed a code this way, and then on another pass through, it needs a different code, but it's in that sort of same spot. At least that's my understanding of it. Now, that doesn't seem endlessly replayable to me. It just says you're putting more puzzles in the box. But it's also timed. Well, there's a mode where you can play competitively timed, trying to escape the fastest. So you may be too frantic to remember the first one? Honestly, I don't think so. But it's 42 bucks Canadian, so not bad for 2 scenarios, since you usually get an unlock game or an exit game, and those sorts of things will run you 20 bucks anyway, right? So check it out if you like escape rooms and you want to take a shot at this endlessly replayable mode. The deadline for that is Thursday at 3:02 a.m. or 4:02 or 2:02. I'm already confused. Whatever it says there. Now next we... Oh! Funny card game alert! We've got Cards Against Humanity, but they're memes! Now, this has raised $700. It will not fund, and honestly that's really surprising to me, considering the amount of funny card games that are on Kickstarter and the amount that people love their anything that seems like Cards Against Humanity. And honestly, this one's probably better than a lot of the funny card games out there. That's not to say that it's good or that it's funny, just that it's slightly above average. I'll show you what I mean. Here's an example of a prompt. They give you a prompt and you have to attach your meme picture below it to make the top and the bottom. Vampires, when they kidnap a girl and she starts menstruating. Because periods are funny. Ah! I'm a man and don't have them. Actually, this example is one of the better ones. I came looking for copper, but I found gold. To be fair, it's just, that about sums it up, you know? Call me when you know the difference between a luteal and follicular phase, bish. Anyway, it's not funding. It won't be funding. Realistically, the copyright infringement on this thing has got to be off the charts. I really just wanted an excuse to blow my little funny card alert air horn and do that perhaps slightly weird flex about my knowledge of menstrual cycles. I swear, I'm not a vampire. I just hang out with them on TV. Moving on, next up we have Dragonbond Lords of Vaala. And this is something that I am incredibly hopeful for. Also because this represents the epitome of Kickstarter value. This is the type of value that I love to see. And if they can do it, so can you, future Kickstarter creators. It's 49 bucks US, 63 Canadian, for what looks to be like a pretty cool game. And a game that has minis. They're throwing in 24 minis to replace the cardboard tokens that usually come with the game as part of their stretch goals. This is almost unheard of. Plus, they're offering you an even cheaper print and play version if you're able to print your own minis and such. All the expansion content and the base game for 25 bucks US, plus some promo cards for everyone who gets the first printing, not just if you get it on Kickstarter, but anyone, which probably doesn't impact the gameplay. You're not gonna need them, but like, hey, it's a really nice gesture. Plus, it's on Tabletopia, so everyone can try it out, not just people who've purchased Tabletop Simulator and then try to play with their friends who don't have Tabletop Simulator. This is how you run a damn campaign, people. Plus, on top of all of that, the gameplay looks neat. And it looks like it also plays relatively quickly. It's an asymmetrical area control game with some programming elements to it. Some of the mechanical highlights are you can play as either a dragon or a general, but your main goal is the same. Get 10 power tokens and rule supreme over the land. But if a general and a dragon come into contact, they can form this Dragonbond, and then collectively they need 15 power tokens to win the game, which is significantly easier than getting 10 on your own. And I just love that they give you this option, but you don't have to do it. Where you may not like it is you choose your actions in advance, forming a deck of cards, one after another, until someone passes. So when all the cards are revealed and you enact them in the order in which they're placed, your opponent may not do what you were expecting them to do, and it could throw off all of your future plans. I know people who won't like this game because of that programming aspect, but I don't mind these sorts of elements combined with the lore and the just generosity of how they've run this campaign. Really seems like an incredible option. Now, obviously, price is one of the main draws for this one, and it's what's made me pay attention to it over the course of its campaign, time and time again, and I'm absolutely shocked that more people haven't jumped on this. 21 bucks for shipping doesn't seem great when the base game is so low, but the base pledge seems like such a good deal compared to these $100 Kickstarters. You're getting it for less than half of that. Well, for half of it, come on. And they also seem to be making a concerted effort to find better shipping areas because they have this thing that says, hey, if you know of a way to ship to your country better than how we've mapped it out, let us know and we will reach out and we will look into that option. They seem really interested in getting this game to as many people as they can. And that just makes me super happy to see. I am very interested in this one. I think this is one you're going to want to check out to see if it's right for you. You have until Thursday the 26th at 4 p.m. to make your decision. Now, next up we have a game that's most likely not going to fund, but it has a chance. It's a lightweight card game called Dino Dodge, where you're trying to be the last dino standing and not get boomed by a meteor. I mean, hits a little close to home when you find out that asteroid Bennu has a 1 in 1750 shot of obliterating the Earth in the year 2300. Have some tact, Dino Dodge. For shame. I mean, it seems like a pretty lightweight card game, but if your kids are interested in dinosaurs, well, hey, it might be a good pick for you. Basically, on your turn, you'll draw a meteor and you'll put it above a section of land, and then you'll play cards from your hand to move you away from that section and move the other dinosaurs towards that section. It's 25 bucks, so you could get 2 of them, or you could get Lords of Vaala. But if that interests you, check it out. That's Thursday at 10 p.m. Now, next up we have Turf War, which is a light tableau building game about getting the best neighbors to love you. It's like competitive Animal Crossing, where you all desperately compete for Plucky's affection. And yes, I said Plucky, not Raymond or Marina or Meringue, Plucky, because she's the damn bomb and she doesn't get any friggin' respect. working away in her workshop every day. She's friggin' #1, and you heard it here first, Chicky Poo. Now, they do have a rulebook, but honestly, their campaign page is clearer than their actual rulebook, which isn't great for when you finally get the rulebook, but good for people checking out the campaign page. They're both fine though. It's 30 minutes long. How many rules can you really cram into 30 minutes, right? So in this game, you start off with a 3x3 plot of dirt, a dream to be the most popular in the neighborhood and win over your neighbors' affections, denying their presence from the lives of your friends who also live in the neighborhood. Well, couldn't you just be friends with your current opponents? No, they're awful. In fact, you should throw termites on their lawn and make them move away. Just burn down their friggin' houses. Sounds a lot like my neighborhood, actually. There are 15 neighbors who all want different things, but you're only gonna ever play with 5 of them in one game. And you're gonna try to win over as many of them as you can. You'll also get to choose on your turn if you're gonna be at home and do the actions of the stuff that you've planted in your yard, or if you're gonna be away and get more things to make your house seem more desirable. But that also leaves you open to being attacked by termites and skunks that your other neighbors throw viciously at your house. It's $15 US, 20 bucks Canadian. That seems about right for this type of game. The deadline is Friday at 1:59 a.m., aka Thursday night. Now, exactly 1 minute later, we have Nersha, which describes itself as a chill game of strategy. And it's a pretty simple concept. Get 3 of your pieces home from the blizzard before your opponent does. As your pieces move around the board, sliding on the ice in a straight line, and only stopping when they hit the edge of the board or someone's piece. And I like this abstract with a light theme around it. I also think it's pretty cool that they're emphasizing nonviolent conflict. You're not hurting the other pieces, you're just stopping them from getting shelter and letting them freeze to death. Much more humane. They give you 12 set maps, but they're all assembled by these little tiles, so there's no reason why you can't make as many maps as you really want, which I think is also kind of a neat idea. I'm sure a lot of modular boards do this, but only having to get 3 pieces home when they give you 12 of each color, I can see the possibilities being quite endless, really. It's a bit pricey for what it is, although I'm sure the pieces are good quality being made of resin. But even still, it's 39 bucks US, $10 less than Lords of Vaala. I know I keep bringing it up. I'm just so blown away by the price. It's hard to not compare everything else to that standard. Then again, maybe its quality is going to be really crappy, so I don't know. Not this one. I think the pieces are actually going to be quite nice. What I do know is that the deadline is exactly the same as Turf War, so decide Thursday before you go to bed if you want in on Nersha. I get it now. I get why it's called Nersha. Because your pieces, they keep moving until they hit something and stop it. Now that's clever. Next up we have, you guessed it, a funny card game. Pop the confetti because it feels like our 100th special. This one is a little unique though because it's a team game where you and your partner have to use ingredients to cook up recipes faster than any other partnership around the table. The only caveat is you can't talk about what you have in your hand. And each ingredient can also be used as a special power instead of contributing to a recipe. I mean, the art's super cute. It's doing really well on Kickstarter already. The early bird pricing, which most people got, is 25 bucks US. Otherwise, it's going to be 30 bucks. And for me, that's just way too much money for a game that you're probably going to play once and say, yeah, it was all right. The art was cool. The puns are fun. And then put it on the shelf and probably not bring it out again. And then move on with your regularly scheduled Twilight Imperium. Because yes, that is definitely the intersection of gaming groups that we are looking at here. Same groups. Same interest. I mean, it's too expensive and simplistic for me, but if you're in the mood to overpay for a lightweight 145 card game, I'm sure Feuding Foodies would love to take your money. Get yourself a cute little avocado tote bag while you're at it. So that's Friday at 12:26 p.m. I would say it's on Tabletopia, but it's not until they raise $25,000 will they offer it to the masses to try. Which I guess is fair. You don't have the budget to design a digital implementation. Sure, but all you'd really have to do is upload the component pieces, wouldn't you? Get out of here. Now next up we have another one that's probably not going to fund. I just don't think it has enough time. And I almost didn't bring it up because of that, because we have a lot to cover this week. But it made the cut because of its description, and that's the Bug Council of Backyardia. The Bug Council convenes to discuss important matters, such as picnics, how to ruin picnics, and of course, income tax reform. Which is such a solid joke that I'm pretty bummed that it's not funding, to be honest. It's a trick-taking and Mancala game, and honestly, the gameplay seems great. You play a suit, and everyone has to follow suit like any normal card game, unless of course you're in Nova Scotia playing 45s, in which case it's just utter chaos. But what's cool, instead of there being a regular trump suit that carries out over the round, you have to look at the council circle to see which suit is trump. And in addition, the lowest card played of the leading suit gets to take all the cubes from one faction and distribute them in clockwise order like Mancala, and this then shakes up the trump for future hands. You get a point for every trick won, and also however many cubes are on the faction of the last card in your hand. And after 3 rounds, you see who has the most points. They also have a bugger bridge style rule where instead of keeping that last card, you can, before playing any cards, you can declare I have no allegiance and aim to get 0 tricks. And if you do, you get a whole whack of points. Now, having just played a bunch of card games over the last week, this really appeals to me. The price doesn't, unfortunately. It's 33 bucks Canadian, which seems a little high for what amounts to a deck of cards and a board with some cubes. Maybe that would be fine if that included shipping, but again, you're looking at like 50 bucks for this sort of thing. But if you don't think that's high, check it out. I mean, I really wish that this would fund because it actually seems quite fun. So your deadline for that is Friday at 11:59 a.m. It's worth mentioning that they do have discounted shipping and pricing for group pledges, and you can play it on Tabletopia to try it out. Now, next up we have UFO Wave, which plays like every other Kickstarter card game ever. It has a big thing saying, hey, if you're a fan of exploding kittens or unstable unicorns, well then you'll love this. There you go. It's hit its funding goal. It's funding. It finishes at 5 p.m. on Friday. Is there anything else to really say about it? Doesn't seem like it. I mean, let's be real. You're not getting it. I'm not getting it. And I think I'd rather be abducted by an alien for a second time than spend any more time on it. Moving on. Okay, fine. I won't be like that. I'll read the rule book for you. You're gonna have a bunch of cards in your hand, and there's gonna be a common line of cards that you're all competing to complete activities from. But you'll wanna make sure that you don't take activities from right beside a human, or they'll spot that you're probably an alien, and then they'll follow you home and start watching you, and as an alien, well, you're shy, and you don't want that to happen. I mean, all the cards kind of just do random things like most of these card games, but there is a little bit more strategy than just the hopeless take that card fest that these sorts of things are. Still not quite enough for me to be genuinely interested though. Now next up we have another one that I'm pretty disappointed hasn't funded yet, and this is a tile laying game called Cartouche. I know one of the designers on this. I don't actually personally know them, but I know their voice over Discord because he was running some of Pandasaurus's playtests for Brew and Raw and Right, which I both had the opportunity to playtest. He's good people, and he seems like a pretty smart guy, so this gives me hope that this won't be some horrible Rallyman Cars situation. So it's not funding, but it is possible that it will still fund because it's at around 73%, and that's about where Deck Chairs on the Titanic was, and we all know that that one got funded. It really did. I can't believe it, and I'm so thrilled that it exists in the world. It just tickles me.
I'll give you a little tickle.
Maggie, let's keep your cameos peachy, all right?
Okay.
But yeah. Anyway, if you like polyomino games, well, this is one of those. What I like about this one is that each turn you're going to draft a polyomino piece or a story card, kind of an achievement that you have to complete. But you could take 2 of one and none of the other, so you have flexibility there. Although you can only have 4 incomplete story cards at one time. You're then going to simultaneously place your animal tiles, the polyomino pieces, on the board, on your own specific player board. And this is where the rulebook is a tiny bit unclear to me, or was, I had to double check. But yeah, everyone has their own board. You're not gonna be playing these pieces on one communal thing. And there will be all these symbols on the board, and you check when you place a tile down, starting from a designated spot, depending on which board side you're on, and then continuing adjacent to that every time. You'll check to see if the piece that you just placed down is next to any matching colored symbol. And if it is, then you get a little token, and you can usually use those tokens to complete your achievements that you've drafted beforehand. You play for 10 rounds, and most points at the end wins. For 39 bucks, well, I would definitely pick this over Nersha, which has the same price point. But they don't have a projected shipping cost, which I think is ultimately gonna really hurt them. I think it's because they haven't sorted it out yet and they don't want to misquote their shipping and then be on the hook when things increase because they're a small company. Like, I get that, but also it feels a little disingenuous to me. Like, they know that the high shipping prices are gonna scare people off, and so they're just, not gonna include them. And then you're going to get a nice little surprise when you back down the line. Because if you're transparent that this isn't likely going to be widely available at retail, I mean, it's going to be on their web store and they say it'll be at select retail stores, I think those who want it will be happy to support it. I mean, yeah, I get it. These are turbulent times, especially for shipping. But not even giving an estimate to your backers is just, it's not a good move. These are turbulent times for everyone, including people who have lost their jobs, and budgets may be tight and should be considered more carefully. Honestly, I'd probably friggin' roast this game right now if I didn't feel some sort of fondness for the designer. And even still, I'm about to start in on it, if I hadn't already spent too much time on this already. We're moving on. But that's Friday at 10 p.m. if you're interested. Now next we have an expansion for Edge of Darkness, the Emissaries of the Veil expansion. And if you're new to Edge of Darkness, you can catch up with an all-in pledge. No, you don't have to. You could start with the base pledge and take it from there. Not spend an extra $63 on a game you haven't played yet and don't even know if you want additional content. I think it just really bugs me that the marketing goes from showing you what you get in the expansion to the all-in pledge, with just like a minor note underneath that like, oh yeah, or you could get the base game if you want. But if you are interested in Edge of Darkness with at least one expansion, maybe you've played it before this, you know you enjoy it, and you know you want that extra content, then to be fair, the all-in pledge is kind of the way to go, because then you're only paying an extra 19 bucks for 2 more expansions. One of which had its own Kickstarter previous to this, and one which was included when they first launched the game. But keep in mind, this was 100 bucks when it first was on Kickstarter. It's 125 now, because you don't have the $60 option that was offered without all of the deluxeifications and the stretch goals. But even still, if you got it the first time around with both of the expansions, you would have paid 180 bucks for it. So yeah, okay, fine. 189 isn't a huge increase and seems okay. Because you waited, you get this additional one for just 9 bucks instead of all the other suckers, the previous backers who supported it the first time round, who have to continue to pay more. I don't know. I still think it's expensive for a game that I think select people do enjoy, but hasn't gotten that much love and attention since its release. It's card crafting at its core, and someone who's played the game will have to tell me, but I really like the idea of card crafting. I'm just always worried that these games won't have enough payoff to make the fiddling of putting all the cards together and the slidey sleeves that are going all over the place kind of worth it. I mean, if you're looking for a card crafting game, make sure you look into Canvas instead, because it's a much lower price point and it looks pretty great. Anyway, if you've got the base game and you already know you want these extra additions, which is basically the same as all the other expansions, just more locations, you get an additional resource that's associated with these particular locations. You don't get any additional reputation tokens for the main game though, which means that you still, in a 4-player game, won't have enough ones for everybody to start the game with 4 individual ones that they're going to trade to buy cards, which is just ludicrous to me that they planned it this way and that they haven't yet changed that sort of thing. This is something that Board Game Ramblings brought up in their review of it, and the amount of tokens from the first Kickstarter compared to this one is still exactly the same, so I can only assume they haven't fixed this. See, I keep getting sidetracked while explaining the game with all this other sort of nonsense behind it, and it really kind of quenches my excitement for it. I mean, I've heard of Edge of Darkness before. I'd heard some favorable things about it. It's a gigantic game. It takes up so much space on the table for what really accounts to kind of a basic mechanic at its core. And they don't even have a link to the rulebook. Any of the rulebooks, expansions or otherwise, on their main campaign page. You have to go find it on BGG. It just really doesn't seem like they're interested in getting new people on board. Anyway, I've already spent too much time on this segment. Basic gist is this, and it does seem cool, to be fair. You start with a guild and some little guild members, cards that don't have a full card on them and they suck. But you're going to sleeve new abilities onto them every turn and make them suck less so that they can do more stuff, right? And at the same time, you're going to be dropping little cubes into this threat tower that has monsters all queued up, and when they get a certain number of cubes, they attack the person whose color is in the majority of their little section. So you're going to be balancing your reputation and your cards while simultaneously having to prepare for these monsters to attack you, and you don't want to let them kill you. And so you've got to keep up this creating better and better cards to protect yourself and grow your points for the end of the game. It honestly feels very much like Dominion with monsters attacking you, except that instead of adding new cards to your deck, you're just adding new portions of a card to your existing cards. And then the expansion content just kind of gives you more cards to add to your deck, aka more portions of cards that you can craft with. So if that sounds interesting to you, took us a while to get there. That's Friday at 11:12 p.m. Now, speaking of outside factors that influences my opinion on the game itself before I've even looked at it, we've got Legend Academy. And personally, I'm already a little biased against Legend Academy because of them not being as upfront as they could have been. And they've sort of fixed this, but also, why would you start off a campaign this way? I mean, I know you want to sell your game, but just think about perception for 1 second. Are you intrigued with all this controversy yet? Controversy sells, baby! So basically, Jesse Anderson, who is the face of Quackalope, the board game channel, is also one of the main developers of this game. And so the first thing that you used to see when you looked at the campaign page was a quote from Quackalope saying, "This game is really special. I love it," or something like that. Then you have a tiny footnote at the very bottom of all your scrolling that says, "Oh, by the way, the guy who says that this is special, I love it, everyone should get it." Yeah, well, he's being paid to develop it. I'd hope he would feel that about his own game. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be proud or excited about the things you create. Not at all. And I think Jesse has probably had some really good insight on the game and has probably been very instrumental and helpful in its development. And the game will probably be better for it. I mean, I've playtested some games before and I've given comments on how I think that they should be improved. And so naturally, yeah, if you take my suggestions on what I think could be better, I'm going to enjoy the game more. I mean, it's just be transparent about it. And I mean, they've realized this and they've taken it down since. Although Alex from Board Game Co. and Jesse are, I don't know, basically the same person. They're on each other's channels so much. And they've still got his quote up there saying, "This game is great." But I mean, you can't cut every quote because then nobody would know that your game is good. They'd never be able to tell by just the rules in the description. I mean, I'm just kidding. And I really have no reason to believe that Alex wouldn't be objective, and I'm sure he likes it, and that's fine. I just think it's really unfortunate that it's become part of the narrative for me when I look at Legend Academy, rather than being able to just look at the game itself and evaluate it on whether or not I think it looks cool and if it's going to be fun. I mean, I think the better way to approach these sorts of things is to say, my friend worked on this game rather extensively, and I'm excited about it. And I'm excited for him because it's a really cool opportunity. And to top it all off, it's a great game, and I'm really happy I don't have to lie to his face about enjoying it. Rather than pretend you don't know this information, or this information doesn't affect you, or Eldorado selecting about as generic a quote as they could get. You can make it charming and speak to the human side of this hobby, and speak to the side of people who you know enjoy supporting you and your friends. And if you can't be genuinely excited about the work that your friends are doing without fearing that it'll color your audience's impression of you, well, you either don't have that much faith in your audience, or your sentiments probably weren't that genuine to begin with. But whatever. What do I know about writing a good quote anyway?
That's a good quote.
Yep.
Like
I will
Power
say,
Grid
yeah.
Mission Red Planet had a beautiful corrupt baby.
Yeah, Peak Oil was a very interactive game.
That's a good quote.
People
Yeah.
need to use. I need to write quotes like that.
Hey, speaking of which, the Peak Oil Pledge Manager is available on GameFound very soon, and I'm still very excited to get my hands on a copy. They're graciously giving me a complimentary copy, or at least I keep saying that, so now they have to do it. And I did a review for them, so check out that if you haven't, because honestly, if I was doing these crowdfunding videos back then, I absolutely would have picked that as my pick of the week.
Hey, 2 tomatoes. Want to throw me another copy since I keep talking about it?
That's the only reason why I'm doing it. They're not watching. Anyway, let's talk about the game itself. This and Edge of Darkness back to back, I'm really sorry. Thanks for sticking around. I think it's all still pertinent, though, and is all part of the conversation about these things. Hopefully, it's interesting and relevant to you. If you just want gameplay, here you go. Now, they're making a big to-do about that the rules are subject to change and that everything is still underway, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. So things might change, and actually probably still should change, but the highlights are this. Well, actually, one of the highlights is this awesome magnetized board that's on the other side of the box that you just open up, and boom, you've got the board. I think that is so brilliant, such an incredibly brilliant use of space. That's how you use your real estate. So you're a student at this special school for legends, and you start out small through deck building and card crafting. You build up your skills, and you also choose a scenario or map that you're going to explore in 2 phases. And then whoever's the most points at the end of the game becomes valedictorian and you win. You can also each use each other's special abilities in exchange for giving your opponent something, which I actually think is a really neat idea. This temporary alliance for that brief moment that benefits the 2 of you, which I don't know if you'd use in a 2-player game, but maybe you would. And it would have to be who's getting the better deal, and does the other person recognize that they're losing out on something. So you'll explore this map and try to move around and complete assignments for your class, right? You're learning how to be a legend. And then when you're done that, you'll go over to the box board where you'll go to class and add certain skills, or skip class and get other bonuses. I love the theme of this. I think it's really charming. It's like Harry Potter or My Hero, where you're trying to learn these extra magical abilities. It makes the leveling up of the characters make a lot of sense. Seems like a lot of fun. Although my main concern is that it's purposefully unbalanced, which is great because then you get every character to feel kind of game breaking. But judging by the playthrough that they did recently with Sam Healey, it still feels that way. And I'm sure they're honing in and fixing it. I just hope that they give themselves enough time to move forward with this development and to not go to the printers until they're completely happy with it. And it also looks like there aren't a lot of characters. You might get a 5th one in the stretch goals. It looks like they're heading that way. They might just unlock it even if they don't make it there. I think they'll make it. There's a lot of time left in the campaign, but that's probably going to be it in terms of characters because of the difficulty in balancing them all. I'm not sure how easy it will be to introduce new characters with specialized skill trees and special abilities who can do these crazy overpowered combos that sync up just right with everyone else's crazy overpowered combos. So it's a really ambitious project. I just hope it isn't being rushed. But not a bad price. $69 US. Even better if you get a group of 4, it's $67.5. What a deal. But you also save a little bit on shipping. And the shipping's not bad, it's like $20. So you have until next Monday at 10 p.m. to decide if you want to back it. And then you have about 3 to 4 months because it's already on GameFound, and so it'll just stay there until they close it off when the printing's being done. Now, moving along, finally. Feels like I wrote a whole book on that book-based game. Now we have a Kickstarter Take That game called Take That Towers, which if you know anyone with the last name Towers, I mean, I guess this is an instant back for you. Take that, Towers! Friggin' hate that guy. Now, my expectations are always incredibly low when it comes to Kickstarter Take That style card games. But the self-awareness of the creator gives me quite a lot of hope. And he says, don't let the name fool you. Take That Towers isn't your mom's Take That game. You won't find obvious decisions tacked onto a derivative clone game here, though you will feel a rush when you foil your opponent's plays. The game is jam-packed with tactical strategies and interesting ideas, and you'll love bringing it to the table. I mean, that's exactly my fear addressed right off in the first paragraph. Off to a good start, really. I also love that there's just an image of the rule book on the main campaign page. Yeah, good. Tell me how to play right there. That's perfect. And it's a very short read, really easy to grasp. Basically, you're building a bunch of towers with your opponents, but then you're going to be competing over who can acquire which particular sections of those towers. And you don't get to enact the text or the ability of that section until the entire tower is complete. When you run out of cards, the game's over and the person with the most points wins. It's $15 US, which also includes $1 shipping to any US address. Or get 2 copies for $19 US, or get 8 copies for $65 US, if you know 8 people who want it. They say, perfect for party favors. Perfect for that office Christmas, mean Christmas swap game. But $1 shipping, I mean, move over, Masters of the Universe, delivering to Poland, you utter sack of garbage, because we've got a new sheriff in town. It honestly seems great. I wish there was a section about shipping to Canada, because other than shipping to the US, I'm not really sure how the shipping to anywhere else is going to be or how much it will be, because it really does seem like a nice, lightweight card game with some strategic planning to it, other than all those other card games who say they're that, but they really aren't. So that's Monday at 10:05 p.m. One to consider for sure. And finally, our last one that we're covering this week, next Tuesday at 11 p.m. Eastern Time, Wednesday 12 a.m., we have Arydia, The Paths We Dare Tread. It's raised over $1 million, and that does make it a prime candidate for my 5 Reasons You Shouldn't Back series, which I really was not going to do. Not on this one. It should be posted now. Try not to waste your time repeating anything, because I'm sure you've probably seen it or you've seen the video. If you want to hear my thoughts about it, go check that one out. And I wasn't going to make it because their funding goal was so realistic and nice at $720K, and I thought, well, yeah, $1 million doesn't seem that much over it, but I got so hyped about this game that I needed to make it as a self-intervention to talk myself out of it. The more I scrolled through their campaign and looked at their answers at their FAQs, the more excited I got. I would highly recommend checking out this campaign page if you have any interest in RPGs. It looks fantastic. If you're a little light on the budget, well then, don't check it out, because you might get as hyped as I am and have to wrestle with, do I spend my money or not? Because it's pricey. It's $165 for the base pledge. That's pretty much their only pledge. They have one little extra thing that you can get if you want, but they are subsidizing your shipping by $20, which is great, but still a hefty, hefty price tag on a game that, well, you may not need. Anyway, I don't want to repeat myself. I go over my thoughts of why I think it looks incredible and why maybe you should consider not backing in the other video, which I'll put a link to in the description below. But just know that I'm really stingy, which is why the video exists, and there's still a good chance that I might end up getting it. So check it out at your own risk, and be on the lookout for a Maggie cameo, or even Maggie 2.0. Anyway, that's it. Another week down. And woo, baby, was this a good week or what? This might be our best one yet. There are some quality campaigns here, both funding and not funding. Every week I do a pick for you and a pick for me, and you can probably guess which two I'm gonna highlight. But I would actually say that over 50% of these games look like something I could be quite into. I really do want to highlight that fact, because some weeks they aren't so great, and this one actually was. So if you skim through some weeks, there are a lot of good ones in there. But for this week, for me, there are 2 that outshone the rest, and I might be backing both of them. But for the pick for me, if I could get one of them just dropped at my feet and I would be ecstatic about, I gotta go with Arydia, The Paths We Dare Tread. I mean, aside from young Maggie making an appearance, who is disgusting and horrid and makes me want to burn the game to the ground, it just looks so incredible. I'm so hyped for it. I hope it lives up to the hype. And honestly, I'll probably decide if I pull the trigger or not closer to the end of the campaign, or if even I just make that $1 pledge, which I really try not to do because I like having to seek out the updates rather than them seeking me out. But it just looks so cool. The equipment and leveling up your character seems so dynamic. I really like the fight system. I really like so many aspects of it. It looks like the multiple maps have their own holders and won't be super annoying to find, like Gloomhaven. And if it were $100, I'd be backing it right now. But since it is quite a bit more, for me, it requires just a little bit more consideration before I ultimately pull the trigger. But honestly, go check out that other video and check out the campaign page, because it seriously looks like a work of art. So that's my pick for me this week. I didn't expect it, but my pick for you shouldn't be any less impressive. And in fact, it might actually be more impressive, because other than AbCon, this is the first game that I am backing, having not played on Kickstarter this year. I ended up backing Vigilante because it was the first one that I covered on this channel, and I got to play it a bunch, and I would have backed Peak Oil for honestly similar reasons as this. It's such good value if I wasn't already getting a copy from the publishers. But anyway, my pick for you this week is Dragonbond Lords of Vaala. And this was an instant back for me. I backed it before even reading and researching about the rest of the campaigns this week, and I don't regret it, and I don't need to talk myself out of it. And it's so affordable in a sea of non-affordable games, which is why I am saying it as the pick for you. I mean, if you hate programming, well then it's not the pick for you. You'll probably hate it. But so much about it actually looks great to me. I love the average game time. I love how they're treating their backers and rewarding them. And I just think it's awesome how much stuff you get for $49. That's almost unheard of. Like, I'm always on the lookout for good deals, and this to me feels like one of those great deals. I'd highly recommend checking out the rulebook to see if it's something that's right for you. And I mean, after shipping, it's still gonna cost me like 90 bucks Canadian, which still feels like a lot. It doesn't seem like as great a deal as that $49 US price tag, right? But I still just wanna support them for all the work that they're doing in making their game accessible to everyone, when they could have easily raised the price $10 to $20, and I don't think anybody would have even batted an eye. So there we go. That's it for the week. It's weeks like this, even though they are a lot of work to research and put together, that makes it feel kind of worth it and helps reignite that passion for the creativity that the hobby can provide. What if this week looks interesting to you? Like I said, I could see 5 or 6 different games that to me look cool. Take That Towers, the Backyard Bugs, Cartouche, Nersha, Turf War even, Legend Academy too. It just feels like such a good ratio of potential experiences. So what about you? Are you backing anything this week? Can you resist the Arydia temptation? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for sticking around this far. I'll put out news about the 1K subscriber giveaway soon because we're so close. I mean, we might already be there by the time this video goes up, but I don't want to be preemptive and talk about it now and look like a fool. Any more of a fool than I usually do. Anyway, that's it. Thank you for liking and subscribing. You're all amazing. My name's Chris George. I don't have a catchphrase, but make sure you do the important thing at your next meeting and discuss picnics, how to ruin picnics, and of course, income tax reform. Bye.